This was Picasso at 15. Hyper-realistic, flawless, and better than most artists ever become. And this is what made him famous. To some people, it just looks like he got worse. But once we understand the paradox of bad art, we'd see that this decline is actually proof of a generational creative mind. Great artists eventually come to love bad art, not because it's bad, but because it's free from the constraints of the creative process. It's alive, and it's the only way to become a one-in-a-kind artist. Every artist starts by learning the fundamentals. Even if we start for fun, we're trying to replicate what looks good to us. But that's the exact trap that artists usually fall into. It's innocent. You're just trying to do it the right way. But some artists are immediately successful, even on a small scale, not because they don't care about perfection, but because they have enough personality to still prioritize their own creative decisions while learning. While the rest of us are trying to perfect creative principles like color theory and the rule of thirds, a lot of the musicians we look up to don't even know music theory. The best analogy I could come up with to help explain this is modern houses. You ever walk into a great looking house and then over time you realize it's just bland and boring? The furniture is perfect, it's spotless and clean, but we still prefer and even build a fantasy around houses in Italy, Spain, or Europe. They have personality, and that's what makes them a great home. It creates nostalgia. That spotless, corporatized aesthetic is exactly what our art will eventually become. Our personality gets stripped because we're following principles too closely. It's a house that, sure, maybe some people will live in, but no one wants to stay. Great artists eventually grow out of their rules. They break them, they steal, they break stuff if they have to. I think we have this almost unconscious idea that what separates great work is simply just good taste. Like Rick Rubin is a great example. His famous clip that kinda became a meme saying he doesn't have any skills, just good taste.
I have no technical ability, and I know nothing about music.
So what are you being paid for?
The confidence that I have in my taste and my ability to express what I feel has proven helpful for artists.
But people miss what he's actually trying to say here. Rick Rubin's taste isn't about some magical filter in his brain that knows how to make things a certain way that he finds good. It's not about choosing the best thing. He's saying that great taste is about being open to ideas we'd at first see as weird, uncomfortable, or even just bad. And maybe because of that, we'd stop making them.
But it was a completely alien underground form of music. And because people were rapping instead of singing, that was one piece that wasn't understandable. And then because the music was like, it's a drum machine, there's no melody, it was too foreign at that point in time for people to understand it as songs.
That openness to take the rules, break them, and even play with them is when you know you have what could be considered good taste.
I remember he was like, Rick wants to take a stab at your song. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah. We played it for Rick and he was like listening. He listened like 3 times in a row and he was like, this song makes me feel orange. And then I was like, oh, well, what do we need to do to fix it? And he goes, you'll figure it out. That's like the genius of Rick. You sit there and then we start fixing all the things that we think are wrong in the song. So then like after we were done, we played it for him and he was like, it's perfect.
Although, there still has to be a period of intense creative output to live up to that openness. But either way, if we obsess over principles, taste, or even what looks good to us, we close ourselves off. We forget it's the times where we go outside of our comfort zones, doing something we never would have expected, following a paradox like the artist who has a day job, or the gym bro who's a nerd, where we actually develop as people and as artists. In our art, we strive for what we think is good at the time. We think this is good and stop there. But in my experience, and you probably have the same, there's a lot of art I've made that at the time I even hated. But years later, some of those pieces are the best to me now. Even my videos on this channel, my most popular used to be my favorite. But now there's a lot of hidden gem videos I love way more for whatever reason. Videos that at the time I just spit out and didn't even try that much. But those became my favorite. Why? Art isn't about following what's good, because what we think is good changes so much, and the creative process is something more true, honest, open, and even spontaneous. We have to follow and bring our best to each project or piece of art, elevating it and following our choices. Not out of a conscious, steered direction or place of taste, but a place of curiosity and fun. And to get there, you have to let go of taste. At a certain point in your journey as an artist, you hit a wall. You think everything's fine, but for some reason, you're just not progressing. You've mastered the fundamentals. You've built your skills. You've followed all the rules, and now you're stuck. That's where the bad art comes in. Bad art opens up a new section of your mind. It breaks the rules and allows you to be free, finally. But what's more important is that it allows you to make more. You won't be limited by rules and expectations in your work. So you start to get more data, feedback, and feelings from your art. It wakes you up again. It gives you passion. Basquiat wasn't trying to be clean. Keith Haring wasn't trying to be perfect. They weren't creating from a place of principles, but again, curiosity and fun. That's why we remember them. They were paradoxical artists, not people we'd usually expect. They broke the stereotype. They were trying to live through their work. It was messy, loud, bold. It reflected their personalities, and people loved it because artists usually aren't loud. They're sensitive. They have to be. The stereotype of the starving artist exists for a reason. We'd rather starve than sell out. So when someone like Keith Haring puts his work all over New York, gets arrested for it, and becomes a legend, we don't love the work alone. We love the paradox, the artist who refuses to stay in the corner. So why do we remember Picasso? Because he was a prodigy who refused his talents and had the courage to stop being one altogether. But here's the thing, this is just what we see looking back. But at the time, even Picasso in his perfectionism received criticism. He painted Science and Charity at 15. It wasn't actually universally loved. Many critics thought it wasn't realistic enough. This is where we get the split. Some artists decide to hone their talents even more, become a once-in-a-generational realism artist because of that criticism. But the artists that don't listen and go their own way based on their own decisions are the artists we remember. Picasso could have had nothing left to prove. He was so young and he was so talented, and although the painting didn't initially sell, it was objectively a great piece, at least for an amateur artist. But we don't understand that what makes an artist isn't their art. It's their mission, their spite that carries them to perfect their craft. He threw it all away. He unlearned what made him a respected prodigy and got worse on purpose. Here's what's so important. You might be thinking that this work isn't worse. Why am I calling it that? Because looking back at that story, we understand that art is so much better. It has personality and it's fun. But at the time, it probably was a big leap. Each evolution, standing on your own experiments and progressively getting more experimental. It's not easy for artists, but Picasso and many other great artists that we all look up to all realize the trap. Once your art is validated, you stop growing. Once your taste is praised and you start to believe in your greatness, you stop experimenting. Artists destroy their skill set just to see what happens. And it is that willingness to lose and be completely wrong which makes them unforgettable. We love Picasso because of the paradox he represents. He didn't always make great art. In fact, he made bad art on purpose. Great artists like Picasso eventually choose freedom over approval, or even find a mix. They have a desire to express themselves, and it grows to be way more important than perfection or standards. When artists stop trying to be good, they'll become truly great. Art doesn't have to be good in the way we'd think. It has to connect. It has to be alive. So make something ugly today and see what it teaches you.